So UFC 303 just ended a couple days ago, and Alex Pereira just finished off Yuri like he was absolutely nothing. But I'm not here just to grade that one fight and talk about that one fight. I'm here to give a whole entire recap of the entire card and break down how good was UFC 303 really. So what I'm going to do is go through the main talking points of this card and give a grade at the end of the video. And for a reminder, this is a series that I do at the end of every single pay-per-view. You can check the playlist tab and find the other ones for other pay-per-views and see what I graded them as well. So let's not waste any more time and let's grade this pay-per-view. But let's start with the main card opener in Ian Machado Gary versus Michael Venom Page, aka MVP. Now I'm going to gloat here for a second. I am the smartest man on earth. I predicted this fight, not to a T. I kind of gave a broad description of what was going to happen, but I said in my prediction video that Ian Gary was going to resort to grappling to get this one done. If you watched any of his fights in Cage Warriors, you know he can grapple to win fights. He has really good body lock takedowns, good inside-outside trips, and I thought he would utilize this versus Michael Page, and guess what? He went out there and did just that. Now, in terms of entertainment, this fight wasn't really that entertaining. It was mainly Ian Gary kind of controlling the back of MVP at moments. In the first round, Ian Gary caught MVP's kick, took him down with it, and then controlled the back with a body lock for the entirety of the rest of the round. And then after that, in the second round, Ian Gary cannot get his takedowns going. MVP showed that there is a speed and striking difference between him and Ian Gary. MVP was the clear better striker than Ian Gary in this fight. And I'll say this real quick. I am pretty surprised how Ian Gary's chin did hold up in this fight. I thought he would at least get hurt a couple times by MVP, but his chin did hold up pretty well. He didn't get rocked or stumbled at any point in this fight. He took a few good clean shots from MVP, but none of them ended up hurting him. But I think it was pretty clear that MVP was the better striker and he definitely won the second round. But the third round is the main talking point. Some people are claiming robbery on this. I can see a robbery for Ian Gary here or for MVP. If I'm being honest with you, I don't really claim this as a robbery. It is a close fight and it all depends on this third round. MVP had full guard control over Ian Gary for like a solid, minute and a half or 2 minutes. Well, then Ian Gary got his control as well on the back for like 3 minutes. So it's really tough on how to score this. I guess on damage in the third round, MVP does win, but there wasn't really any significant damage to make it clear enough to go to MVP. I did give Ian Gary that third round, but I can understand the argument for it to go to MVP. But no, screw that. Screw the whole fight recap. You know what happened. I think you want my overall opinion on entertainment of this fight, and this fight was pretty boring. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind grappling. I actually enjoy grappling, but it has to be done in a certain way. And when it came to Ian Gary and MVP, they just aren't really mainly grapplers. I know Ian Gary can grapple, but they're not true grapplers, and there's not much ground and pound to their game. It's just, it feels like some of these guys just stall on the ground, and that was the whole tale of this fight. It was just Ian Gary kind of stalling on the back, trying to go for chokes that weren't really in. MVP did a good job of fighting in the hands, but overall, it just wasn't really any eventful moments that really made you go, oh my God, or made you surprised in any sort of way. This fight was overall, I think, pretty lame, pretty boring. Another stinker from Ian Gary. He wins. He's undefeated 15-0 now. I think he gets smoked by JDM. I genuinely think JDM does smoke him in the first round by right hook KO. But we move on to the fourth fight down on the main card, and that was Bueno Silva versus Shon. And this fight really wasn't that eventful. I mean, it was two women going at it, and it wasn't really a bad fight by any means, but Shon ended up cutting open Bueno Silva and the fight ended kind of abruptly. There really isn't much to say. I don't think many people really even care about this fight, if I'm being honest with you, but I mean, Shon gets it done by a weird cut stoppage. To be fair, she did cause that cut, so good on her. She wins. I guess she might be in line for a next title shot against Raquel Pennington. I say we book her versus Kayla Harrison or just give Harrison the title shot outright. I don't really care which one you pick or what the UFC wants to do. At this point, I don't really care about women's bantamweight. Since Nunes retired, this division has looked pretty bleak, let's be honest here. But moving on to the feature fight, we had Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze, and what a fucking stinker, bro. This fight sucked. It was terrible. Both of these guys looked like they couldn't fight. Dolidze gets it done, and fair play to him, but Roman Dolidze sucks. Anthony Smith sucks. They both suck. I think anybody who has any talent at light heavyweight or middleweight beats Dolidze or beats Anthony Smith. Smith should retire. He's cooked. He's done. I don't understand Anthony Smith anymore. This is Roman Dolidze. Delph is known for not being able to strike, and somehow he was able to outstrike you for 3 rounds. I know, I don't care. It was on short notice. It is what it is. But you're Anthony Smith. You were a title challenger. You fought John Jones at one point, and this honestly kind of hurts John Jones's legacy. Anthony Smith is dog shit. I hate to say it, man. I hate to break it to you, bro. But Anthony Smith just didn't do anything in this fight to win. Roman Delph at one point was dancing in front of Anthony Smith, and he sat there and laughed at him and gave him a hand tap afterwards. It was so stupid. I mean, when it comes to Anthony Smith, you've known for a long, long time now that your weakest part of your game is probably your low kick defense, and somehow you're letting Roman Delph just low kick you for free, pretty much. It just was abysmal. Anthony Smith has not fixed that part of his game. I don't know how. This is like the 20th fight that he has had bad low kick defense, and he's still getting exposed for having bad low kick defense. Delph has nothing but an overhand that barely can land, and somehow he still outstruck Anthony Smith. I'm telling you right now, if there's anybody who wants a free win at middleweight, just fight Delph. Somehow he's still winning, but I think he is not really that good. And the same thing goes for Anthony Smith. I think if like Jamal Hill wanted to get a nice quick win on his resume, just fight Anthony Smith, man. Who cares? You're going to beat him in the first round anyways. But overall, this fight was just an absolute stinker. It was terrible. I had to will myself to stay awake for Lopez versus Eay. And you know what? Screw Delph versus Smith. We'll just move on to Lopez versus Eay. Dan Eay, I mean, big respect to him. I think we all have to look at Dan Eay as a kind of a BMF now. If you don't know what Dan Eay did, I'll tell you what he did real quick. He came in, I believe, on less than a day's notice. I think he weighed in, a few hours before the fight even happened. This dude basically came in on 4 to 5 hours notice, which is insane. Brian Ortega pulled out of the fight that morning. He had like a 103 fever. He was sick. The commission didn't clear him to fight. They ended up getting a call from Dan Eay or talking to Dan Eay for a replacement fight. He was in town getting a massage. Gets a call from, I think, Hunter Campbell or Ali, whoever his name is, gets a call from one of the matchmakers. They say, hey, you want to fight Lopez tonight? He goes, hell yeah. Comes in, weighs in at 165, and fights Deo Lopez. What a fucking BMF at this point, man. That is one badass thing from Dan Eay. Even though Dan Eay did lose this fight, I don't really count it as a loss. I mean, he went in there on 4 hours notice. How can you count this as a loss? He saved the card and respect the Eay. But in terms of this fight and how it went, it was, I would say, overall pretty entertaining for the most part. It was mainly Lopez outstriking Eay in the first 2 rounds. And the third round is where things got really interesting. And I'll say this about Lopez. He has a bad gas tank. I was willing to let it go and just forget about it when he fought Movsar because it was on short notice. And I thought, maybe Lopez on full camp would have beat Evloev. But he had a full camp for this fight. He was fully prepared to fight somebody. At the very, very least, I thought his cardio would hold up for 3 rounds, but it didn't. And he was legitimately kind of really gassed out in that third round. And I think if Eay would have kept it standing, I think he would have finished Lopez. But he sits in full guard, just grinds the rest of the round out, loses by decision. It is what it is. But Lopez in the future, I'm not really fully sold on him to be a next challenger. And I think he probably does lose to Movsar again if he does fight him one more time. I just don't think you gassing in that third round in not a very high-paced fight versus Dan Eay where you're pretty clearly winning the first 2 rounds. I just don't think you can have bad 3-round cardio at featherweight. I know he weighed in a few times, but overall he went up in weight. So, I mean, he was still getting his hydration in. I just don't think you should have bad cardio in a 3-rounder when you've been on full camp for however long, 2 months, 8-week training camp for Lopez here. I don't really know why he gassed out like that, but he did. And so moving forward, I'm pretty worried about Lopez, but this fight overall wasn't bad, wasn't too amazing. It was a pretty decent scrap, I would say. Nothing too crazy to get your socks blown off of. Just overall, a pretty decent fight. No finish, it is what it is. But moving on to the main event, Alex Pahsa starches Yuri Prochazka in the second round by a switch head kick. Dude, if there was any doubt that that first fight between him and Yuri was an early stoppage, this one pretty much put it all to shame, put it out the window. Yuri Prochazka is cooked, man. And listen, I did pick Pahsa to win this fight, but I thought Yuri would have more success, and he didn't have much success in this fight at all. He pretty much just got brutalized for 2 rounds and then put down and out. And I'll be honest with you, I heard MMA Guru talk about how Pahsa is exposing the whole sport, and I think he's right at this point, man. Pahsa came into the sport 3 years ago, and he has beaten 5 former UFC champions being a pure kickboxer. That shit is fucking crazy. A lot of these guys who fought Pahsa have been training for over a decade, been doing a lot of grappling, and they still can't take this guy down, or they still can't control him for 3 rounds. I don't know how Pahsa hasn't been exposed yet, but he just is that dude. And I don't know why these guys just want to strike with him on the feet. Jamal Hill, why are you out here and your whole game plan is to prove that you're a better striker than Pahsa? You're not. He's a 2-time weight glory kickboxing world champion, the best the sport has ever seen in kickboxing, and you want to go out here and strike with him on the feet and then get left hook KO'd. Yuri Prochazka, shoot a double leg, man. Shoot a single leg. Shoot something. Yuri, you had Alex Pahsa in the clinch and you didn't drop down for a double leg, didn't drop down for a single leg, didn't try to trip him over, do an inside-outside trip. Nope. You just clinch with them for 3 minutes and then just let him go. I don't really know what is going on with these fighters who fight Pahsa and their game plans. It's pretty baffling to me, but overall, this fight was a really impressive performance from Pahsa. He's a dog. He is one of the best combat sports athletes of all time. Again, a 2-weight champion in glory kickboxing, a 2-weight champion in the UFC, has a really, really impressive resume in the UFC. Beat Strickland, former champion. Beat Jan Blachowicz, former champion. Beat Adesanya, former champion. He beat Yuri Prochazka twice, former champion. Beat Jamal Hill, former champion. This guy has an elite resume, and this is all done in 3 years. Pahsa is a true beast, man. I can't take that away from him. He's a dog. But when it comes to Pahsa, he dominated. He won clearly. He head kicked Yuri out cold. Great finish. Great everything. Great performance. He is that dude. I can't keep saying that enough. I'm sorry. If I have to give it a thumbs up, I give it a big thumbs up. So good job, Alex Pahsa. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive through some of these prelim fights and just give you a nice little rundown of what happened and how good the prelims really were. Peyton Talbot, another dog. Dude, Peyton Talbot is my twin brother at this point, man. He is me. I am Peyton Talbot. I'm kidding. Dude goes out there and he smokes Giannis Gamori with a straight right down the pipe, knocks him down in 19 seconds. It was pretty much that. It was a pretty quick fight. And Peyton Talbot, I mean, is the next kind of big prospect at bantamweight. Do I think he'll be champion anytime soon? I kind of want the UFC to take it slow with him, so no. But he did call out Adrian Yanez, and I'm all for it. Book that fight anytime soon. I don't care when, where, what time, whatever it is. I don't care. Just get Peyton Talbot versus Yanez at some point in the next few months, and I'm down for that. Peyton Talbot's a beast. Charles Jourdain got KO'd by Gene Silva as well. Gene Silva looks like a 50-year-old man, but he's only 27. These Brazilians are crazy. Dude was pretty much styling and mocking Jourdain the entirety of this fight. Hits a sick, nasty uppercut when Jourdain was leaving the clinch. Gene Silva's a beast. He has real KO power. He might go pretty far at featherweight. I don't know how far he will go. This sucks for Charles Jourdain, but it is what it is. This is kind of how his career has gone so far. He wins 2 or wins 1, then loses 1. He's just a really off and on fighter, but I still think he is very good. But Gene Silva, man, just has that different level of power, and you just can't handle that power sometimes. Joe Pyfer also fought Marc-Andre Barriault. Joe Pyfer is, I think, still very, very good. I just think he took a 5-rounder a bit too early versus Jack Hermanson. Marc-Andre Barriault kind of has to survive guys who have power, but Joe Pyfer, I think, had too much power for Barriault. Lands a nice right hand over the top. It wobbles Barriault, then follows up another right hand on the back of the head almost, drops Barriault, uppercut, and it puts Barriault out cold. Really, really impressive performance from Joe Pyfer. Barriault is no slouch. He does beat some guys pretty clearly in the UFC who are talented. So Joe Pyfer redeeming himself, redeeming his loss almost to Jack Hermanson. I still think he has talent. I still think he is a prospect. You can continue to push Joe Pyfer. He is also a KO artist. I just think Jack Hermanson was probably one of his worst matchups style-wise, and taking a 5-rounder that early was just a bit too early for him. Now, that was pretty much all of the exciting fights that happened on UFC 303. The rest were pretty boring. Ricky Simon versus Vinicius Oliveira was probably the one that was on the cusp of being exciting, but overall that fight just didn't really deliver at all. I thought Ricky Simon would give Oliveira some more problems, but he didn't. Oliveira just went out there and kind of styled on Ricky Simon for 3 rounds. Nothing too crazy. Oliveira can be beaten in the future by somebody good. He's going to get cracked at one point with his chin out there. Don't get me wrong, he has good head movement, but I'm scared somebody's going to crack him one of these times or one of these days. Andrei Arlovski versus Martin Buday was abysmal, terrible. Both need to retire. Martin Buday sucks. Andrei Arlovski is way too old, 45 years old, should not continue fighting. It basically just was 2 fat men clinching, very, very low level. Julian Robinson versus Michelle Waterson Gomez. Jillian Robertson gets it done by just grappling for 3 rounds, nothing too crazy. Michelle Waterson did retire at the end of this and got a whole speech, a whole promo package for her retirement, and we still sit here and we see Glover get the worst retirement of all time. The UFC, I think, is now putting more effort into fighter retirements. I wish they put more effort into Glover's and some others in the past, but nevertheless, she still easily gets out-grappled by Jillian Robertson. Again, not too entertaining. And then Cub Swanson versus Andre Fili. I guess Big Boy Latinas get robbery wins. I thought Cub Swanson kind of won this fight, but the judges gave it to Andre Fili. It is what it is. It was a pretty entertaining fight while it lasted. It wasn't anything too crazy. It wasn't like the most boring fight I've ever seen, but it mainly just was both of these guys at range, just exchanging strikes for the most part. Nobody really getting hurt. Cub Swanson at 40, I still think is pretty good. Andre Fili, still pretty good, but just not ranked level, I would say. Overall, this fight wasn't bad, nor was it good. Was it the most boring fight on the card? No way, but it wasn't anything to really gawk at. It was kind of just another below average fight, I would say. But that is all the fights we have on UFC 303. I think it's time I give it a grade. And what will I grade this 1 through 10? Very specific score as well. I'm going to go ahead and give UFC 303 a nice solid 7.9. There were some good KO moments. There were some good moments on the main card. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of these fights didn't really deliver. I don't think Gary versus MVP did what we really expected or what we wanted to expect from that fight. I don't think Dan Eay versus Lopez was really that exciting, even though I do respect Eay for taking the fight in the first place. Anthony Smith versus Delph brings that rating down a lot. Same thing with Bueno Silva versus Shon. Andrei Arlovsky versus Martin Bidet brings this rating down. Same thing with Michelle Waterson versus Jillian Robertson. Same thing versus Ray Tsuda and Carlos Hernandez. Same thing with Ricky Simon versus Vinicius Oliveira. Overall, some of these prelim fights and some of the main card fights just really didn't deliver what we really wanted from a card. It wasn't a bad card by any means. It's a bit above average, I would say. We had some good finishes, some good one-punch knockouts, some out cold knockouts like Joe Pyfer, like Alex Pereira. But this card could have been, I think, way better if we had some more finishes or some more exciting fights. There weren't really too many wars, let's be honest here. So this card wasn't bad, but I think it was a pretty good card. I think I enjoyed my time watching it. I think it was worth it to watch this entire card. But will I go back and watch this 10 years from now? Probably not. The only thing that's worth rewatching the next 5 to 10 years is probably Alex Pereira finishing Yuri Prochazka, but that's really about it. Other than that, this fight won't live on in the history books of UFC. So I think a solid 7.9 does serve it justice. I think if there was one more better fight on the card, it might be an 8.5 or an 8.1, but I think just with some of these fights like Anthony Smith versus Delph just really brings down the card. So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you for watching this video. Leave a like, leave a sub, drop a comment in the comment section down below. I like reading your guys' comments, but I'm out of here, guys.